This is the Play Your Position podcast, where we huddle up, call the plays, and inspire you to run your ball into the end zone. Are you ready to score more game-winning touchdowns in your life, business, and career? Then listen up, because it's game time, baby. Now, here's your host, Mary Lou Kaiser.
Hello, Team PYP. Welcome to today's episode of the Play Your Position podcast. As always, I am glad you have decided to join me today. I'm flying solo, and I'm going to share with you a piece of writing that I just published on my blog. I realize that many of you who listen to me may not realize that I write regularly on my blog at the PYP podcast sister site, maryloukaiser.com. I'll put a link to the post I'm going to be reading to you today. So if you want to go read it yourself or dive into it a little bit more, you can. I want to encourage each of you before I read this today to not look at your phone the next time you are waiting somewhere for a service to be done on your car, like what happened to me, or perhaps you're waiting to meet somebody. You might be in a medical office. Instead of automatically pulling out that phone and looking at something on there, instead choose to be present to what's going on around you. And the piece that I'm about to share with you highlights what can happen when we do that. And the deeper into the digital world that we go as parts of this human race we all belong to, the more I'm becoming an advocate for consciously removing yourself from the digital life that many of us are building and participate in real life. So that is my message for today. Now let me share with you this article that I wrote, and let me know what you think. I love to hear from listeners. Also, if you're not on my newsletter list, definitely you might consider getting on there, because I share bits and pieces of writing in there that I don't share anywhere else. And if deep thinking and creativity and self-leadership and personal growth are important to you, that's a place where I share resources and insights and observations that can help you achieve some of your goals in these areas. And I'll put a link to how you can get on that list if you're not already on it. That will be on the show notes page. All you have to do is tap that link. It will open a window and you can get on the list. And I promise I do not send out an overwhelming amount of content. And I'm also very conscientious about what I share, because time is extremely valuable to all of us. So I want what I share to be valuable. And I think you'll find what I'm about to read today, it'll probably make you think. And that's usually one of my top goals here at PYP. So without further ado, here is my post for today. It's called, I Didn't Look at My Phone. I recently took my car to a local service station for its annual state inspection. I decided not to look at my phone while I waited. Instead, I decided to pay attention to the activity happening around me and listen to what people were talking about. The shop isn't large, and neither is the lobby. 100% all-male staff, tatted up, good, hardworking men who understand cars and deal with a lot of bullshit all day, as so many of us do. A man came in who announced he had another nail in his tire. Apparently, this happens to him often. I asked, "Where are you driving with all these nails?" He shrugged and said, "I don't know, but it keeps happening." Then he turned to his phone, and we didn't talk again. After he left, the guy behind the counter, whose name I learned is Butch, told me about the man with the nail in the tire, how he works for a billion-dollar property management company. They've been a client of ours for 20 years, Butch said. And if you're even 1 cent off on the invoice, they will catch it, call you up, and make you send it out again with the correct amount. I suppose that's why they're a billion-dollar company, I said. Butch said, I suppose so. Probably closer to 2 billion by now. Butch has a tattoo on the inner side of his left forearm that says, "For my Butch, I love you more. Love, ... From my place at the counter, the signature in the tattoo was illegible. Obviously from his true love, or that's what I want to believe. I thought, how cool is that? To have someone in your life that warrants getting that message tattooed on your arm. I learned he's one of 5 children. On Mother's Day, all 5 kids went to the cemetery to pay respects to their mother, competing with signs of their affection for her with ever-increasing sizes of bouquets of flowers. He said it got to the point where there was no room left to put his bouquet. Everyone else's was bigger and took up all the room, he said. I bet there were plenty of graves with no flowers, I said. He nodded. Most of them had no flowers. We got to talking about our elders, what happens when people get dementia. The other guy from the shop, who has a kind face but looks worn down by life, was considering our conversation. Both of his arms are tattooed, with a giant New York Yankees logo covering his right arm, the N and the Y, and on his left arm, by the crux of his elbow, 2 rifles cross, with words underneath I couldn't make out. His beard and mustache are gray. It looked to me like he doesn't laugh enough. I wanted to give him a hug and tell him, you matter, and you're good. I learned his mother is starting to show signs of dementia, how she's confusing details in conversations. The other day we were talking about hundreds of dollars, and she was talking about thousands of dollars, he said. I asked how old she is. He said 72. She lives with him. He told me there's new research about Alzheimer's and dementia, how in Europe they call it type 3 diabetes. Really, I said. Google it, he said. There's all kinds of information about it online. Says it's caused by all the sugar and processed foods we eat over here. The conversation felt pretty heavy at this point. To bring us back to the moment, I mustered up a big smile and said, on that note, how about this beautiful day? The sun is out and it's supposed to warm up later. Everybody laughed. Then Butch pulled up my record on the computer and asked about my dad. Says here this car is affiliated with James. I said, yeah, that's my dad. He's dead. Those words came out of my mouth so matter-of-factly, I think it surprised him. Oh, he said, pausing the way you might in church when the priest asks for a moment of silence. I'm sorry. Thanks, I said. Then, for whatever reason, I felt the need to explain that's why I'm back in New York, taking care of my mom who has Parkinson's, can't live alone, but she wants to age in place, how it's the right thing to do, how this country doesn't do a good job of honoring our elders or supporting the people who take care of them. Most people just want to shove them away someplace and pretend they don't exist, I said. The man with the Yankees tattoo, whose name I didn't catch, nodded. I will never put my mom somewhere. We talked about what happens to people whose minds completely go. They have to be in lockdown, which is Butch's Aunt Ellie's situation. She has to be monitored 24/7. He went to visit her recently, and she said upon seeing him, nice to meet you. That was hard, he said, her not recognizing me. If she doesn't know who I am, I'm not going to see her for her anymore, right? I'm going for me. I said, there's nothing wrong with that. He considered this idea, then said, you're right. But I sensed that admitting that out loud was a little uncomfortable for him. The young man who did my car inspection, probably 19 or 20, just beginning his tattoos, with long hair and a gentle face, stood behind the counter near the door to the shop, listening to us older folks talking about people we love getting old. I wonder if he worries about the older people in his life. I wondered if he worries how he fits into this world, if he asks himself, what is my place? If working on cars is part of his dream, or if he thinks less of himself because he's just a car mechanic. If he spends a lot of time online, and if that makes him happy. I wanted to hug him too. I wanted to hug all of them. I see people like him and Butch and the guy with the kind heart and machine gun tattoos whose mom lives with him as noble, doing work that really matters because they keep our vehicles safe and running, the vehicles that carry us from place to see our families and our children, to get us groceries, to take us on vacation, and sometimes just to drive because we need to drive. I would have missed all of this had I made a different decision about what to do with my time while I was waiting. If I'd buried myself in email or scrolling Instagram, I wouldn't have heard the stories others are living. I wouldn't have learned about what some researchers are now calling type 3 diabetes. I wouldn't have contributed to the bigger conversation with people who are on a journey of their own, not much unlike mine. In that short span of a morning, we found a common connection with each other and celebrated being alive, doing the right thing, and loving each other even when it's hard. And it's hard sometimes, I said, as I returned my credit card to its slot in my wallet, to love people. But we do it anyway, because what else is there? Butch said, if you ever need anything, we're here for you. And I knew he meant it. I knew those words weren't just words he says. There was weight to them, a genuine sincerity. I wished them all a great day and walked outside into the morning sunshine. The rest of my day lay ahead of me. I vowed to make the most of it. Thanks so much for listening to another episode of the Play Your Position podcast. I hope my story of not looking at my phone while I waited for my car inspection to get done inspires you to become more conscious of how much you have your phone in your hand, and perhaps make it a point to pay better attention, greater attention to the people around you. Today, this week, even if you just do it once. And if you've got a great story from what happens when you do that, I would love to hear about it. You can always reach me. Just DM me on Instagram or reach out to me on LinkedIn. And some of you have my email. I'd love to hear it. In the meantime, team, you know what to do. It is always a great day to get out there and play your position. This is Mary Lou Kaiser. We'll catch you next time.
Here at the Play Your Position podcast, we believe that the road to self-mastery and a life well lived starts with answering the call to leadership. That's when the fun really begins. Send this episode to any friends who might need to hear the inspiration and ideas you heard today. And feel free to rate and review us on your favorite podcast platform.